Hey everyone, this is Alex with another rapid-fire review, this time for IO's Hitman 3, the 8th installment in the Hitman series and the final entry in the modern trilogy. Now, I'm pretty familiar with the Hitman series. I played a good handful of the older games from way back, Hitman 1 and 2 and Blood Money, I think, from the first generation, and Hitman 1, 2, and now 3 and from the current gen. So I definitely knew what we were getting into with this game. And I knew that OJ and I would be the best, stealthiest hitmen in the world.
Oh god! Alex is making me do this. I'm sorry.
You're not sorry.
I don't want to do this.
Now we'll start with the graphics. The look of Hitman 3, as you'd expect from a sequel just 2 years down the line from the last game, is near identical to Hitman 2. We do get some slight updates in textures, there's some reflections and some lighting improvements to the world. They got some new bloom effects, and oh boy do they love showing it off. They also decided to change up 47's face. He has a softer jawline, less pronounced cheekbones, and perhaps since so much of the world put on weight during COVID quarantines that he too needed to have a fuller, softer face to impersonate people. I didn't really like it at first, and even after playing through the whole game, I don't really care for it now. The writing for the game is pretty mixed in quality, per usual. The storyline is kind of bad. I mean, look, the bar for these games is pretty low. We have a stone-faced, visually striking cloned man with a shaved head and a barcode tattoo, shows up to various places, magically fits in all of his victims' clothes, and not a single person notices him. Even when the baddies know beforehand that he's coming, and what he looks like, they can't seem to spot him. Imagine working at a hotel for several years and your work buddy Rob shows up, and he's got bullet holes in his shirt, and now he's a totally different dude who now looks like Thin Diesel, and it's no big deal. We'll go back to being a mostly deaf security guard. So the story is what you'd expect. It plays out like a dollar store spy novel mixed with a soap opera. Fortunately, there's so little of it, and it's not much of a drawback. Plus, it's always been cheesy, so I imagine it's meant to be that way. At least I hope so, right? You aren't playing these games for the stories, right? The game unfolds as follows. Go here, kill them, and them. Find out the mission was a ruse! Go to the next mission and kill this person, and get the info they were hiding in a safe that had the combination written all over the walls of the room that the safe was in, for some reason. Oh no, this info is useless. Then someone betrays you and you're captured, but it was a double cross to the double cross, and then you escape the one inept guard, kill the big bad evil guy, and then that's the game. So, kinda bad. This is not to say that there's not other bits of writing throughout the game that are actually pretty good. Many seemingly throwaway NPCs have interesting things to say, which was actually kind of refreshing. They may tell you things that make the mission easier, may give you a fun tip on how to murder people in neat ways, or in one mission, actually there's a side storyline that's 100 times more interesting than the game's main story. The game actually rewards you for exploring, taking your time, and not being a rampaging murder monster. Though it still is very fun being a rampaging murder monster. I personally recommend using a hammer.
Don't miss.
It's fucking hammer time, everybody. Oops.
Don't let them escape.
As for gameplay, if you like 2, you'll like 3. Kind of how if you liked 1, you like 2. Because not a damn thing has changed. You do now get a useless camera that's just a tech lockpick for no reason, but that's it. This plays exactly like DLC for Hitman 2. The game gives you a huge range of lethal and non-lethal ways to take out targets, witnesses, or random people that just need a hammer to the dome in an open sandbox environment. It's a system that works, even for the 3rd time in a row. These games found out the formula works for the fans. It's never going to win any awards for innovation, but it's always pretty satisfying, so they aren't risking it by changing anything. The majority of the people like the last game's gameplay, and I'm one of them, so the majority of people will probably like this game's gameplay. But it's also not wrong to want more, especially for the $60 asking price. The one big exception is the AI. It's just as bad as it was in previous versions. Most of the time, it's just okay. Think of them as mostly deaf, pre-murder victims, oblivious to all things, all the time. But there are times when they're actually much dumber than that. It can actually be really bad, and when you are actually trying to focus on being a hitman and playing into stealth, it's just kind of embarrassing and immersion-breaking. That's not how you double bonk.
I panicked.
How do you? You don't know how to do any.
Where? I think I dropped it.
Look into your heart. Don't want to do this. Go, man. No,
There it is.
So since the gameplay hasn't changed, what becomes most important is the maps to explore and replay. Here we have 6 missions total. 4 of them are great, 1 is pretty meh, and 1 is a garbage linear thing at the very end that may have been acceptable in 1997, but it is not at all up to par in 2021. The 4 good maps, I would say, are worth playing around in. They're worth exploring and replaying at least a few times. They had clear targets, lots of ways of getting to them, interesting ways to murder random goons, and they were even fun on subsequent playthroughs. One in particular, I highly recommend playing at least a few times to get the murder mystery side story. It's far better than any other story elements in this game. There was one open map that we didn't quite enjoy. I mean, it wasn't that fun on the first time, and I definitely didn't want to go back and replay it. The big issue I had was the last mission. The final map was terrible. It was a bad way to end the game. It's just running down a long hallway, either killing or not killing henchmen, with no alternate ways to move through it, no consequences for making too much noise, no reason to put on a different outfit, nothing mattered. And there was no reason to replay it. After several hours in the modern Hitman world playing a modern Hitman formula, they put us in GoldenEye 64. It's even the same damn Janus train. Don't get me wrong, I love GoldenEye, and would probably rather play GoldenEye than Hitman, but it felt like we switched games entirely. And this had none of the things that made the Hitman game special. One thing I wanted to mention is there's something slightly off about the whole Hitman 3 experience when you take a step back and look at the missions and how they flow and fit together. A few of the missions work and would have been a good DLC pack for Hitman 2 if packaged. But we have others that stick out and don't quite make sense in the bunch. The mansion mission doesn't feel like it fits the game at all. In fact, the mission had 0 impact on the game, if I remember right. I mean, you do get some intel, but then you're immediately told it's useless. So, was this a standalone Knives Out map added to the mission pack to take DLC up to a full-size game? The final mission, again, doesn't fit either, not in playstyle or design. So with IO working on a 007 game, is it really that crazy to think that this was a demo or a proof of concept set inside a GoldenEye map used to pitch the 007 game, and it was simply added to the game to beef up the content quantity to $60 mark? Alright, so that may be a little crazy, but it's nowhere near as far-fetched as some of the stuff that we've been fed in Hitman games before. So overall, the gameplay is pretty good with some flaws just like the last two. The level design is pretty good with some stinkers just like the last two. So scoring is tricky. Hitman 1 from this trilogy I would have given a 7, only because I'm not allowed to give half points, so 7.5 wasn't allowed. Hitman 2 I would have given an easy 8, so I struggled between a 7 and an 8 with this game. Honestly, after our first playthrough, I was thinking a 7, especially with that last level. But after going through a few maps again on my own, I got into that murder sandbox groove that makes these games so special. I went on a rampage with a can of diet soda and some muffins. I pushed an old woman into her early grave. I threw people into the massive grinding wheels of a grape press. I electrocuted half a dozen people with wine. And I did unforgivable things to dozens of people with a banana. So Hitman 3 gets the 8. Hitman 3 is pretty great. If you're a fan of the series and you want more of what you've played before, it's definitely worth the pickup. It's an even bigger no-brainer when it goes on sale. So thanks so much for watching this rapid-fire review. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Hitman 3 kill was, and we will see you on the next Angry Joe Show.